Mm-hmm. 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 Why can't we work as one to change the way we live today? Why can't we work as a team to make a way to brighter days, brighter days, brighter days, brighter days, brighter days. Too many people suffering, crying, reaching for your help. Open your eyes and change the way we deal with war in the world today. The heart of Africa is crying. Congo needs your help today. Stop looting minerals from our country, rich in diamonds, gold, and more. Diamonds, gold, and more. Rich in diamonds, gold, and more. Diamonds, gold, and more. Why can't we work as one to change the way we live today? Why can't we work as a team to make a way to brighter days, brighter days, brighter days, brighter days, brighter days. Did you know that Congo has the potential to be the most powerful country in this world? Yet we allow our Western countries to steal our minerals and joy. 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 Hypocrisy is not gonna change. The crisis in Congo, atrocity is not gonna change. The crisis in Congo, in Congo, in Congo, in Congo, in Congo, in Congo. God, hear our prayers. God, hear our cry. We need divine intervention today. God, hear their cry. God, hear their prayers. They need divine intervention today. 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 Why can't we work as one to change the way we live today? Why can't we work as a team to make a way to a brighter day?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the How Much Do You Know About the DR Congo webinar. My name is Nancy Jose Tumba Smith, and I am a director at H2O Congo. I'm joined here today by Barbara Mutombo Shakudia, who is also a director at H2O Congo, based in Dubai. Patrick Abea, our documentary filmmaker. Junaid Yetkinner, who is our music outreach coordinator, and Mina Malu, who will be translating for us here today. And they are all based in Canada. H2O Congo was founded in 2008 and with the aim to bring water to the Congo. Water is a symbol of education, healthcare, and housing. We also hold international conferences around the world. We've held conferences in England, Holland, Norway, and Canada. And in 2009, we held our second annual How Much Do You Know About the DR Congo conference in Canada, Toronto, at York University. So I'm very excited today to be joined once again by Madame Justine Poyo Kasavubu and Kambale Musavuli, who were both part of this conference in 2009. The topic today is Congo 60 years after independence. And we are here today with three prominent speakers, Congolese speakers, who are based in Belgium and Ghana. And they will elaborate on this topic through a panel discussion, which will be led by Patrick Kabea. And we thank you all so much for joining us here today. And we hope you leave enlightened and with a heart to help us bring positive change to the DR Congo. Without further ado, I now pass you to Patrick Kabea.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. Hello, my name is Patrick Kabea. I'm very delighted to be moderating this event. If we go back 60 years ago, the DR Congo fought and won its independence from its former colonial rulers, Belgium. And today the topic of the talk is 60 years after the independence. And we have a great group of panelists who will headline the webinar. And without further ado, I'll introduce the panelists. The first one I'll introduce is Madame Justine Poyo Kasavubu. She's the president of the Congolese diaspora. She's a former minister and ambassador for the DRC under Laurent Désiré Kabila. She's a writer and a sociologist, and also did a stint at the High Commissioner for Refugee HCR in Geneva, Switzerland. Her latest publication is called Kasavubu, Biographie d'une indépendance. The second person I'll introduce, I'm very honored to introduce this guy who's actually somebody I've been following for a long time. Kambale Musavuli is one of the leading political and cultural Congolese voices of our generation. He's an international human rights advocate, working with youth across the African continent. He's currently an analyst at the Center for Research on the Congo. And last but not least, Jean-Jacques Lumumba is a Congolese whistleblower, and is a former executive at the BGFI Bank in the DRC. He denounced what is now called the Lumumba Papers. In December 2019, he received the International Anti-Corruption Award for his commitment to the fight against corruption. Okay. So yeah, as we're saying that we're here because it's been 60 years after their independence, and I wanted to know first of all with the panelists here, I want you guys to introduce yourself better again. And the main question I have for you here to introduce yourself is how has the last 60 years, or how has it influenced you as a person? How has it affected your careers, your trajectories and stuff? What has happened the last 60 years? How has that affected you personally? And I want to start with Mama Justine Kasavubu, if you could answer that question for us and introduce yourself also.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, as you said, I am one of the 9 children of President Kasavubu. Well, I was born in Kinshasa, grew up there for a few years, and then later on I went to a boarding school because independence brought also instability. So our father was not, it was not easy for him to follow up our studies. So we went to boarding school, but I must say that the education we got gave us the opportunity keep contact with the country. And every single time we would go back to Congo, we would go to the village and stay with the villagers and, just learn about our traditions. And well, as you have mentioned, of course, I am a writer. I've written already 5 books before this one. The first one was the native story of my father. And then I wrote also a book asking myself, are we decolonized or are we still under dependency of international community? But of course, the recent book is maybe the one of, I'm really willing to share with the more people I can, because it gives an answer to the education issue, but also to the lack of knowledge of our own history. And this is also maybe one of the explanation that can, bring us a new light to understand exactly what is happening in Congo. So 60 years after independence, we must thank God that we are still alive, because it was not easy. And we have been, since the coup of Mobutu in 1967, under pressure and under repression also. And being the daughter of the first president was not also easy for survival. We only had a dilemma. Either you submit yourself to the dictatorship, or either you go to exile. And I mean, going to exile meant a lot, because of course, you lose everything and you have to get a new birth in some way. So it was not easy, but also being in exile, it gives you a new perspective to find out what is really going on. And also it brings a new conscience and maybe new motivation, because if you are willing to help your country, I mean, being in exile, it's like crossing the desert. That's where inspirations arise. And that's also where you can really find yourself and maybe know more about yourself and about your own capacity to help others. So this was a little bit of my destiny. But of course, I feel very privileged anyway, because it's not always easy to make Congolese understand what is really the meaning of independence. It seems like after 60 years, Congolese have lost the motivation to fight for the country. And here it's time for me to pay tribute to the father founders of our country, who really with less gave us a lot, independence, for instance. And we now know much more, and we have so many more tools to fight with. But what have we done with them? I think responsibility today is also ours. So I think that now we have to put aside criticism about only what colonialism did. And we also have to check within ourselves and find out where we collapsed and where we didn't do, wrongdoings is also on our side. So for the moment, I think this is my introduction.
Thank you. Very interesting. Seeing it, especially being the daughter of the first president. So very interesting how that must have been for you. We'll move on for the time here. Kambale, same question for you. I know you haven't been there for 60 years or since the 60s or whatnot, but yeah, in the time that you've been alive, how has the last 60 years of independence influenced you or your career trajectory?
Well, you're not sure if maybe I may have been here longer than 60 years.
That's true.
Mainly from the perspective that our struggle, our people, lives in us. There is a generation who came before us who fought to achieve very specific objectives, and they did, and they've shared a story. with us, and we're carrying that story with us as we continue the fight. But the question you ask is very profound, and it's, how can I say, I keep thinking about if we need to think about the obstacles, but more so what is it that we have achieved. I'm always from the perspective that when we look at the Congo where it is today, it's very easy for someone to feel hopeless, right? To feel that things are not going the way it's supposed to go, to say, hey, after 60 years of independence, what is it that we have to show for? But we're forgetting the struggle that started way even before colonialism. We can go to Diego Cao arriving, when we're speaking about King Nzinga Bemba, who sent a personal letter to the king of Spain to stop slavery, to stop
Portugal
kidnapping. Portugal, apologies for that. To stop kidnapping the Congolese and sending them to slavery. After him, there were resistance. From King Pavinta standing up to Simon Kimbangu spending more years in jail than Mandela. He was in jail for 27 years. What was his struggle about? It was around sovereignty, land sovereignty, the control of our land, the control of our resources. And then we have a generation who faced in the 50s a brutal regime, and they had odds against them where people didn't believe they could do it. If you have to think about the context of the colonial rule, how can young Congolese with no weapons, no guns, be able to overcome a military power which had force publique, right? Who just fought during World War II, and some of the Belgian paratroopers. And they faced that force and achieved a very clear objective. And that objective was independence now, when the world said that this was not possible. So when I see that they actually achieved it, and it's up to the generation after that to continue the struggle, we have to remember all the fighters after who also fought for transformational DRC, speaking about the Deuxième Indépendance movement with Mulele or with Sumialo in the Kivus. Even after there has been more. But for our generation, I always lift up the story of the young Congolese who did the impossible that we don't think about usually. Usually we talk about the democratization process of the 90s. But in 2015, our generation saw something that may have not happened in the Congo in a very long time. In January of 2015, young Congolese outside of political parties with no political affiliation whatsoever went out for a protest called by politicians, right? And these politicians did not show up in front of the parliaments. Talking about January 19, 2015. As the people were left to themselves, they say, well, we came here to protest for a law that was being introduced for the census, to have a census before the elections. We are not gonna go home. They started something that day that in my lifetime, I did not see. They mobilized, organized, and brought to a standstill a city of 15 million people, Kinshasa, that forced the government to shut off internet, shut off communication. Even with the measure that the government did, they were not able to stop the Congolese demanding that their voice is heard. And I saw something that I never saw before. I did not know that King Wadondo spoke Lingala. I actually did not know that. I did not know that I could watch outside of Congo a debate in the Senate on a live stream. But why did they do those things, right? The people in the streets protested in what we call the Telema uprisings, stopped the government from passing the law. And the people, the managers of the neo-colonial forces, decided to live stream a debate in the Senate to show the people that even though you don't have internet, we let your family members outside watch this live stream of our debate and not pass the law. and they were able to stop, they say that they're not going to pass the law. Then the president of the Senate spoke in Lingala. Ba papa, ba mama, bandeko. This law is not passing. You should go home now. Stop protesting. That, to me, I call is the beginning of the third independence movement for the Congo. Why also I say that is we lost, in my view and information that we have, at least 400 young Congolese because we found a mass grave in Maluku of 400 people, which still today hasn't been investigated about who is there, but we know these are the young people who were killed there. That young Congolese in 2015 said, we are going to rise up. And in our process, as we are engaging in what is happening in the Congo, in the past 60 years, we've seen the first wave of independence movement, which has achieved the independence, independence immédiate. We saw the second wave as Mobutu took control of the country, being supported by Western nations and mercenaries, the Mulele and the others who tried to change something. We saw the movement of Congolese rising up, calling for democratization and so on. And after 1996, with over 6 million Congolese people dead, in 2015, the Congolese youth rose up. So it's not what has happened for the past 60 years that matters. What matters is, today in 2020, what is the pen, like the drawing that we, the Congolese people, are gonna draw to tell a different story of liberation for the DRC? Because the liberation of DRC, and if I may quote Kwame Nkrumah to end my introduction, Kwame Nkrumah said something very profound during the independence, the Declaration of Independence of Ghana, right? He says that the liberation of Ghana is meaningless if it's not connected to the total liberation of countries on the African continent. The Congo is in the same situation, that we are right in the heart of Africa. We have 9 bordering nations. We have the wealth that is the engine of the transformation of the African continent. As we fight to liberate that, how is this connected to the struggle of the shack dwellers in South Africa who are fighting for land sovereignty, which is the same issue that we are fighting in the DRC? How is it connected to the struggle of the Malian people for the past month have been in the streets demanding that the leadership of the country represent the people? So that as we fight in DRC, just as the fathers and mothers of independence did, right? That they connected the struggle of the Congo, not just to the Congo. It was an independence movement across the African continent. The African nations are fighting for the liberation. How are we going to connect our struggle in the DRC as a third independence movement of the Congolese youth starting in 2015 with the Telema uprising to the liberation of African peoples? If we are able to go to our direction, I guarantee you, in our lifetime, we'll see freedom and liberation in the DRC.
That's a great question. That's like another question right there that you just dropped us, where it should be a debate question, actually. Well done. Well done with that question. Jean-Jacques, je vous passe à vous. Et la question d'introduction, c'était comment est-ce que ces 60 dernières années ont influencé votre parcours, votre carrière?
Ben, merci beaucoup tout d'abord pour la parole. Je dirais, je suis né plusieurs années après les indépendances, soit 36 ans après l'accession 26 ans après l'accession du Congo à l'indépendance, donc plusieurs années après. Mais j'ai eu cette chance ou cette malchance d'être né sous la dictature de Monsieur Mobutu, avec une famille qui était complètement martyrisée. Et je suis né sous un régime d'oppression parce que j'ai eu suite à certaines réalités de la famille, à grandir à côté de mon grand-père, Louis Richard Lumumba, et sa maman, la maman de Lumumba, donc Julienne Amato. Donc, ça a été des années difficiles, même si d'un point de vue scolaire ou d'un point de vue académique, mes études ont aussi contribué à forger ma personnalité. Donc, au-delà de cette histoire de famille assez particulière, mais c'était des années assez compliquées et très dures, parce que pas seulement pour moi, mais pour tout le pays qui vivait sous la dictature. Et au sortir de cette dictature de Mobutu, que nous croyons tous de tous nos voeux comme une libération, nous sommes tombés sur une autre forme de prédation et de dictature beaucoup plus sévère, avec l'arrivée de Laurent Désiré Kabila, soutenu par le Rwanda, le Burundi et l'Ouganda. Et cela a été encore des années un peu compliquées pour moi. Donc, vous voyez que ça n'a pas été des années faciles, ça n'a pas été des moments simples pour ma vie, mais cela a forgé un caractère en moi d'une personne qui a voulu, suite à l'héritage familial et suite à mon éducation personnelle reçue de mes parents, de mes grands-parents et aussi de mon école, parce que il faut souligner que j'ai fait des humanités littéraires chez les pères jésuites, et cela a forgé mon comportement. Et donc, jusqu'à ce que je travaille pour une banque, ça c'est vraiment pour résumer mon histoire, et que je rencontre ceux qu'aujourd'hui les journalistes appellent les Lumumba Papers. Donc, c'est des moments très, très particuliers et très, très difficiles, parce que c'est des moments qui ont forgé à la fois mon comportement, parce qu'il faut souligner que c'est entre une famille qui a une histoire, l'oppression, l'éducation, et cela a permis à ce que j'ai un comportement assez forgé pour pouvoir, dans ma vie, toujours travailler et vouloir être du côté de la justice, parce que c'est quelque chose d'assez dur de porter cet héritage de Lumumba. Madame Kassavou, qui est avec nous, j'espère qu'elle ne me contredira pas, parce que c'est assez lourd de porter des patronymes assez difficiles comme les nôtres, parce que tout le monde attend de vous une forme de responsabilité et de prise en charge, surtout dans des situations que traverse notre pays. Et vous savez, ça n'a pas été très facile. Donc, les dernières années, ou les 60 dernières années depuis notre accession à l'indépendance, n'ont pas été des années faciles, encore moins pour moi et encore moins pour toute la nation congolaise. Mais cela ne m'a pas empêché à continuer à espérer et à rêver des jours meilleurs pour notre pays, la République démocratique du Congo.
Merci. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just I forgot to mention that in the chat there's a translation. So for anybody that that doesn't understand French and wanted to know what's been said, what's been translated, we'll try our best to summarize what's been said in French, in English, in the chat, so that people can read what's there. And we also welcome questions. Q&As in the chat. So if you have a question, you can address it to the panelists. If you have a question for one specific panelist, just write their name. Don't send it to them, send it to all the panelists. Just make sure this is addressed to Kambale and you ask the question. And thank you for that, actually. That was interesting to see the three different perspectives, but all kind of intertwined in it. It was very good, actually, to see that, especially the two family ties, and then also seeing Kambale bringing us back to the history, before the 60 years, and with Kimpavita, with something which is very interesting that he mentioned is the letters of King Wimba. Interesting things that a lot of people don't know about. Where back in the days during the Congo Kingdom, we had one of our kings actually wrote a couple of letters to the Portuguese king demanding answers about the slave trade and stuff like that, and so it was very good to see how all those three were taken. We'll move on to the second question. The second question that we had for the day was, what is the biggest obstacle that the country has faced in the past 60 years? So I'll start again with you, Madame Kasavubu. What is the biggest obstacle that the country has faced in the past 60 years? In French, quels sont les plus grands obstacles que le pays a dû faire au cours des derniers 60 ans, 60 années? So go ahead.
Well, I think that the biggest challenge was the misjudgment of our leaders about international community's loyalty, because I think it begins on this problematic. Were we really considered as independent countries or not? And were we, were we free to decide about our own destiny? I think this was also very difficult. And also we had always a fight between the powerful minority within international community against the powerless majority, also within international community, but above all, in our own community. So I think that all these issues were very difficult to deal with, especially when you know that the East and West were struggling a lot to keep control over Congo and to keep their stronghold over Congo. And I can remember some memories of my father saying how badly he was under pressure. To concede about Lumumba and about the members of his group, and how difficult it was and how heavy was the burden of mass manipulation. So, but most of all, the responsibility, I think, must be seen over Belgium, because the Belgians were not willing to give independence. It was just against their own will. So it seems that a plot was set up to keep control, but also to destabilize the country. Because I cannot understand, even today, how a developed country who claim daily that democracy is a value, how could they just plot against a young nation who was just experiencing independence, experiencing also freedom of speech, experiencing also the new challenges, and who was not against the West, but it was just hatred. And I can remember also what we've seen in South Africa. It was almost the same. They didn't draw lessons of the past. It's always, this powerful minority in the international community against the majority of African. They have to keep always the domination over us. So I think this was the first challenge, and it was not the least. But I think also that very early, very soon, political elite didn't really respond to the aspirations of the people, because they were corrupted. But I cannot say that in the First Republic that they were all corrupted, but the temptation was there, because the plot of the Belgian was there. Just remember the secession of Katanga. Why was it necessary? Just because the purpose was to destabilize the Lumumba government. They began with the secession that took place in July, early in July. And then they went on with the Kasai secession. This also was to destabilize the Lumumba government. So far, July, August, there was nothing against the two men, the two leaders. They worked along together, you know, to keep Congo united. They traveled all over the country to, you know, to calm down military, you know, because the revolution was just spreading everywhere. And this unity was just seen as a disturbance to the plot that was just underway against our country. So I think that these were the challenges. I mean, it was just over then. It was just an overwhelming challenge, and it was really difficult to keep control and to keep stability, and also, but my father as first president, I mean, he had to move through all this. He had to keep the country respecting the constitution, not giving too much to those who came to destabilize, but also keeping an eye on the population, because he had to satisfy the population. I mean, it was not easy because the loyalty of Belgium was not, you know, up to date. And also, I think that, Russia, which was called by the time USSR, with Khrushchev, they brought a new, you know, a space of fear that the West went against. And I mean, behind the scene, Congo was just, you know, the place, the spot where all these superpowers came, you know, to challenges themselves. So, I mean, this was the most difficult. As a result of this confrontation, you have also the weakening of the country, and the weakening also of the governments. But anyway, as I will have to mention it when I will speak about my book, my father tried to do his best and to keep confidence, and also to bring us, you know, whatever he could. But of course, it was quite difficult because he knew that being president now, he was no more the president of his own party, Abaco, but ever since we got independence, he became president for everybody. So he had to satisfy everybody, even those who voted against him, even those who didn't like him, because under influence of the Belgians, who always practiced the divide and rule, you see? So divide, split the people so you can rule. This has always been, you know, the leitmotif of the Belgian rule until today.
Thank you. Sorry to cut you there, but I know that we're pressed for time a little bit here. From what I took from you, it's one of the main thing you have there is the destabilization, right? And from the political elite. And I think I'm going to have a question at the end for that, for your father, because I think as somebody who's I've done 2 documentaries, and my the main focus of my documentary, to be honest, is our independence and our fight for independence. And I think I do definitely have some questions for you on that at the end. But I'll give Kambale the floor. Same question: what has been the biggest obstacle for you that the country has faced in the past 60 years?
I think I'll have to go with what Maman Justine has just shared around knowing our history and not repeating the same mistakes. And I will share something which maybe some Congolese may not understand, but we lost a man by the name of Baba Wamba Diawamba. I met him, I think around 2014. And just as any Congolese, I've read books. I know his role with the RCD rebel group. The first time I met him, I mean, of course, you know, I went at him, hey, you led a rebellion, who are you, and so on. And from that time, he responded to me and shared a lot of information with me over time. and he just passed away last month. What the relationship I built with him for the past 4 to 5 years now helped me understand the importance of young Congolese to actually speak to the elders and actually know what is it that happened. Like I'll use an example. Through many elders, I've had confirmation from few elders that there was a meeting in Europe during the roundtable that Kasavubu left the team in Brussels and went to Paris. Right? For some of you who've done the research, you've heard of that. That one time he left and went to France and came back and nobody knew what he did. Same thing happened in during the election. That's something, I mean, people will find out, because when Felix Tshisekedi came to New York, I was in New York, and he was flying on Moise Katumbi's plane. No, he'll help him fly. But I remember that one of the issues when he came to New York is after the meeting, he held an event at especially New York, Salvation Army, right? The Congolese came, we listened to what he had to say. After the meeting, he left, right? And we found out he was in Delaware. Even his chief of protocol had no idea where he went, right? So there are many things that happen in history about what are the things that we did well, that we need to know and continue to do. What are the challenges that we have faced that we need to make sure not to repeat them, that we don't have that space and time to even speak to the elders in an open space where either we can share our views as young people, hey, you are wrong, A, B, C, D, but also learn from them. That is one of the, I believe, is one of the obstacles that we think our generation are doing something that's new. When I'm finding out that there was a huge Congolese youth movement, student movement in the 60s, which were Marxist-Leninists, mobilizing Congo. How many of us know about that? And before Baba Wamba Diawamba passed away, he shared with me, you must read the thesis that Pedro Monaville wrote about the youth movement in the DRC. He has a book coming up, but his thesis can be downloaded. How come, as a young Congolese, I don't know about the youth movement, right? So the obstacle, one of the obstacles that I think is major is knowing our history, learning the good and the bad so we don't make the same mistakes. The second one is we blame ourselves a lot for the challenges that we face, not understanding how the system is stacked against us, right? If you don't understand the system, you can't fight it. One of my mentors told me one time, in the context of Africa, he said that Africans are playing football, like soccer, when the West, Africans are playing ping pong when the West is playing American football. They keep getting hit every time they hit the ball. If you think about that picture, right? Africans are playing ping pong and the West is playing American football. So you know in American football, you will tackle someone. So we're playing ping pong thinking this is the game, but they're playing football and they keep hitting us, right? But what is our struggle? As I say in my first intervention is we are fighting to regain control of our land, to gain control of the resources of our land, to exploit our resources for the benefit of the masses, and make sure that no child goes hungry in the Congo. That I'm here, when I was in Kinshasa, that's what I heard. If we know that we don't always have to blame ourselves for the obstacles, and that we need to learn what the system is, it will help us overcome some of the challenges.
Thank you. I'll have to, cut you off there because of time. But yeah, it's I love how it's kind of all the same, but there's a militant aspect on it there, and what we as the Congolese youth have to do, taking our country forward. I like that angle that you've always had, actually. Jean-Jacques, sending it to you now. Same question.
Je peux dire que l'exposé de Madame Kasavubu et de Monsieur Kambale ont quasiment dit beaucoup de choses. Mais moi, j'ai relevé quasiment sept obstacles et 7 points principaux qui ont aujourd'hui empêché la RDC à aller de l'avant depuis l'indépendance. Les deux premières, ce sont des obstacles d'ordre politique et deuxièmement, de la faute de la communauté internationale. Par là, je citerai principalement ceux qui se considèrent aujourd'hui comme les maîtres du Congo, c'est-à-dire la communauté internationale représentée par la Belgique, notre colon, et les États-Unis. Et en parlant de la politique, c'est que dès le départ, les dés ont été mal joués dans le sens, c'est que ces pays qui ont, soi-disant, nous ont donné l'indépendance, ont planté les germes de la dislocation et du dysfonctionnement du système en lui-même, en opposant les Congolais les uns contre les autres et en fabriquant très vite, quelques années plus tard, un monstre en la personne de M. Mobutu qui a beaucoup contribué depuis 1960 à torpiller la démocratie et à ramener un système qui continue à sévir jusqu'à ce jour. Le troisième élément, c'est la corruption. Pourquoi la corruption? Parce que les Belges ont utilisé la corruption pour acheter la classe politique. Et ce système de corruption et de prédation a été installé comme mode de gouvernance dès le départ de notre accession à l'indépendance, parce qu'il y a eu des leaders politiques achetés, la sécession katangaise financée des mains de maître par les Belges et les Américains parce qu'ils voulaient faire main basse sur les ressources minières de la RDC. Et malheureusement, les gouvernants congolais qui se sont succédés depuis 1965 jusqu'à ce jour ont bien appris de ce système pour en faire aussi leur mode de gestion et de gouvernance. En quatrième point, c'est la qualité de la classe politique de notre pays. C'est que cette qualité, la classe politique a été très médiocre et des gens qui n'ont malheureusement pas voulu construire dans la durée et qui sont venus détruire ce pays et installer ce système de médiocrité, de bassesse à tous les niveaux, où malheureusement ce ne sont pas les gens qui méritent, qui ont pu ou qui accèdent à l'exercice de quelque fonction que ce soit. Cinquièmement, c'est le modèle économique qui a été choisi depuis le départ. Aujourd'hui, vous le savez bien que l'économie de la RDC ou du Congo d'après les indépendances a fortement ou s'est fortement reposé sur l'extraction minière. Malheureusement, ce modèle économique a montré ses limites dans beaucoup de pays et nous n'avons pas pu nous tourner vers la formation et ou l'encadrement des ingénieurs, l'encadrement des personnes qui ont pu créer ou qui pouvaient créer de la richesse. Ce pays qui compte beaucoup de terres arables, malheureusement, reste parmi les derniers dans l'exploitation agricole et dans l'agro-industrie. Le modèle économique choisi dès le départ n'a pas permis à la RDC d'être le grand pays qu'il mérite. Et malheureusement, cela, de l'autre côté, nous a plongé dans des dettes. Et vous savez, l'endettement a été aussi, que ce soit l'endettement intérieur ou extérieur, a été un point d'achoppement pour le Congo. Deux fois, je rigole quand l'ancien président Kabila dit avoir laissé 1,2 milliard dans la caisse de l'État comme réserve de change. Mais malheureusement, vous savez, de l'autre côté, il ne fait pas allusion à la dette intérieure et à la dette extérieure. Donc, le pays encore est dans le rouge, est resté déficitaire malgré qu'il a eu à connaître quelques années d'accalmie. Tout ça parce qu'il n'y a pas eu de vision économique sérieuse et malheureusement, cela n'a pas pu conduire à développer, à faire avancer le pays. Et septièmement, c'est la vision politique et la vision de la classe dirigeante. Aujourd'hui, malheureusement, cette classe dirigeante de la RDC n'a pas su construire ce sentiment d'un Congo grand et cette vision pour conduire réellement ce pays vers son émergence. Je n'irai pas plus loin que ça. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes dirigés par une coalition au pouvoir. Vous pouvez, à moins que moi qui suis en train d'exposer maintenant, je sois en train de me tromper, mais je ne connais pas la direction économique vers laquelle cette coalition au pouvoir veut emmener le pays. C'est quelque chose de scandaleux et de honteux pour un si grand pays qu'est la République démocratique du Congo. Nous le voyons dans beaucoup de pays, dans beaucoup d'économies dans le monde, et surtout, même pas, ne parlons pas de l'après-Covid, mais parlons même de l'avant-Covid. Quelle est la vision économique vers laquelle les dirigeants actuels du Congo veulent emmener le Congo en 2021, en 2022? Ça, personne ne le sait. On s'attelle à parler du budget, à parler de ce que de la grande vision du président, des slogans pompeux et creux, mais malheureusement, on ne sait pas aujourd'hui si d'ici une année, combien de chômeurs congolais retrouveront de l'emploi, ou combien d'entreprises seront créées, ou combien d'investisseurs, que ce soit locaux ou étrangers, arriveront pour résorber le chômage, et dans quel secteur précis. On ne sait pas si aujourd'hui le Congo compte combien d'experts en métallurgie, on ne sait pas si le Congo compte aujourd'hui combien d'experts en mécanique, on ne sait pas si le Congo compte aujourd'hui combien de polytechniciens. Toute cette politique-là n'est pas définie pour aider ce pays à aller de l'avant. Donc malheureusement, la 7e chose que j'ai pu relever, c'est cette absence de vision politique pour conduire le pays vers son développement.
Merci beaucoup. Alors, je suis ready pour le temps. So I think because we're running out of time here, and if people have some questions right now that they need to they want to ask the panelists, please feel free to text them, to chat them, send them in. I do have one final question here. I know it was a question in 3, but what we'll do here is I'm going to ask you, it'll be like a power question. So I'll give you 30 seconds to answer each one of the questions that I'm going to ask you here, which is, what steps do we need to take today in order to create a long-term change in the DRC? So each one of you guys, I'll give you 3. There's 3 questions. I give you 30 seconds per question, and the first one is from a government's perspective, from an investor's perspective, and from an individual's perspective. So it's power play questions, 30 seconds. I'm going to start with you, Kambale, actually, this time. Change it up a bit.
Government?
Yeah. So what steps do we need to take in order to create a long-term change in the DRC from a government's point of view, from an investor's perspective, and from an individual's perspective? So you have a minute and a half, 30 seconds each.
Very tricky. I mean, for the first one, I won't even go with the government. I'll speak more that power needs to be in the people. The government only reflects the vision, the aspirations of the people. Because they don't reflect the vision and aspiration of the people, that's why we're seeing the lack of vision that Jean-Jacques Lumumba spoke about. In terms of the investors, I'm sorry, I could care much. The number one investor for DRC is people, right? The state needs to invest in the people. I strongly believe that in the Congo, we have all the intellectual capacities that we need inside and outside the Congo. The challenge is that the people who reflect the aspirations of the masses are not in control of the state. And so just to come back now to close the whole thing, I think the process to answer investors, government, and anyone should be, what can Congolese people do to transform the relations, production relations on the ground? One, there need to be mass education of the Congolese to be able to know what is the Congo, what we need, and how we can organize it better. 2, there need to be mobilization. So education first, mobilization of the masses, so that they start organizing Bonga, whatever form of local control of power. And last is support, right? Because for any struggle for liberation, there needs to be support. For those of us who have the means or who are outside, we need to support those who are on the ground fighting to liberate the country.
Thank you. And Madame Kasavubu, same questions. What steps do we need to take today in order to create a long-term change in the DRC? 30 seconds per question. The first one is government, from a government's perspective, from an investor's perspective, and from an individual perspective. You're on mute right now, by the way, if you don't mind unmuting yourself. Okay.
Well, thank you. I think that we must not be naive. What is the current situation today in Congo? Congo is under occupation, Rwanda's occupation, which is the tool that the international community through European Union and Belgium are using, to keep control. We are just heading back to neocolonialism spirit. So we have to get rid first of this occupation. Then all these issues will be possible. Because what haven't we done during recent decades? We have fought very firmly, but every single time we reach the elections, you always see interference of this international community through Rwanda, and to plot and to make things just get worse. So I think that the first challenge, and it's not the least, it's really very important, it's to get rid of Rwanda's occupation. Then it will be possible to have a plan of development for the country, and also to set back and to rise up new values, those values that made possible our country to get independence. I mean democracy, but not only in words, but also in practice, such as respect of rule of law, and also respect of the people, and freedom of speech, but also facility to have economy going on, and also to have a strong currency, which of course is not the case. Today, Congo is just working with the dollar. The franc Congolais doesn't mean anything to anybody. And whenever the currency moves, but the high price in Congolese currency stay the same. So you always have this great gap growing for the capacity of purchase of the people. So I think that also education should be reformed, because we have said it here earlier, that our people ignore our history. They don't even know the signification of our country, the value of our country, and it's a country that is worth fighting for. And have we done enough to educate our people? I think we haven't. And was it possible to do more? It was not possible, because dictatorship didn't come to help the people to develop themselves, but it came only to serve external aspirations and needs. So therefore, it needs also a big determination of the Congolese themselves to decide once for all, what do we want for our country? How do we see Congo within the 20 years to come? And what are we ready to give as a sacrifice on our own part to make it possible? I think these are, the frame through which we should go to make all these things possible. But again, I say it, today we are under occupation, and this occupation has one goal, just to help those countries, international community, but not all international community. You also have bad guys in this international community. And those bad guys, unfortunately, are those who have the power. And those are who I call the powerful minority against the powerless majority. So if we can move through this, then we will overcome.
Thank you so much. Jean-Jacques, I'm just going to, before Jean-Jacques answers, I just want to let you know that Jean-Jacques is going to be speaking in French. And in the chat, there's translation being happening for those that don't understand French. So, Jean-Jacques, à vous la parole.
Bon, pour aujourd'hui, très clairement, travailler sur le changement d'un point de vue politique et économique. Ces deux secteurs sont intimement liés, la politique et l'économie. Il faut travailler sur la prise en charge de la population aujourd'hui en elle-même pour pouvoir changer les choses. À titre personnel, je ne compte jamais sur le soutien de ce que peut ce que nous disent la communauté internationale, que ce soit la France, la Belgique, les États-Unis ou tout autre pays, parce qu'ils ne nous apporteront jamais une solution durable. Aujourd'hui, l'état dans lequel se trouve le pays, ils en sont responsables, c'est vrai, mais nous-mêmes aussi, nous avons notre partie de responsabilité. À nous de prendre conscience sur ce que nous devons faire afin qu'un jour, nous puissions faire respecter effectivement le choix de notre population sur ce qu'elle veut, sur sa vision pour changer les choses et pour développer le Congo. À titre personnel, pour pouvoir changer les choses, je reste aujourd'hui très impliqué sur toutes les questions liées à la transparence, à la bonne gouvernance. Je pense que c'est à mon niveau la petite contribution que je peux apporter. Mais cela, je ne réussirai pas seul sans la conjonction avec d'autres personnes et d'autres forces du changement qui veulent bien apporter cette transformation profonde dans les prochaines années.
Merci. Thank you. And now, actually, before we, that was actually very interesting. It's funny that everybody has different perspective, but yet kind of we're all the same. I enjoyed the investor perspective from Kambali, because we share the same perspective on that one. I actually appreciated all three individual perspectives, actually, because it's always good to see. I'm a person who I haven't been to Congo in almost 30 years. I haven't been to Congo in almost 30 years, so it's good to hear from a perspective from people who have been in the Congo in the last in the last couple of years, or this year or last year. So to have your personal perspective as opposed to me reading online, from an article from a French person or a Belgian or an American or something. So it was very good to get those perspectives from you guys. We do have now we're going to Q&A. Just letting people know that they can type in their questions. We already have a couple of questions in there. I'm sure our panel members can see the questions. And the first question that we have in there was addressed to Madame Kasavubu and Monsieur Lumumba. And I'm just going to find you the question and say here. Hey, the question says, what can we do to make sure that the next 60 years don't end up in a succession of wars, conflicts, and coup, but rather coming together of a diverse people that works from different cues. So I just want to know, like, what can we do to make sure that what can we as Congolese, I guess, or as a country, to make sure that the next 60 years doesn't end up in a succession of wars, conflict, coup d'etat, but rather coming together of diverse people? What can we do to get there? And that was a question for Mama Kasavubu and Monsieur Lumumba.
Yes, I don't know. Jean-Jacques would go first, or do I?
You can go first since you started. Sorry.
Thank you. Well, I think that the first thing, the most important thing for me, is to get rid of the occupation, because the occupation means a regression of Congo. And I always feel very sorry when I hear our compatriots always referring to the décideurs. Some among us always refer to the décideurs as if Belgium, France, UK had a say, a determined say to our destiny. So it shows also the lack of capacity of governing, also the lack of the knowing how of our independence, and also the knowing what is possible or not. And I think that also we have to teach our own elite that we are an independent country. You see, it was, acted by the United Nations. And I think that today, only Congolese are not convinced that they are independent. So first, get this conviction that we are an independent country and that we are able to take our own decisions. But it also needs discipline. It also needs, a very growing capacity to work together and not to suspect any other among us that, oh no, I'm going for tribalism or I'm going for favoritism. No, we have to be able to stick together and to sort out the challenges that we need for the coming years. And also education, I think it's the most key issue to overcome all these difficulties. Because our youth today accuses a lack of practice. Even French speaking is very bad. You can hardly imagine how they can express themselves. Of course, it's not our mother tongue, but anyway, it's the tongue that we use for work and for studying. But it goes very far also for the teachers. So I think that reforms are very necessary, and our program is underway to make it possible that this will be a priority. But I also think that on the healthcare issue, we will have to make huge efforts because today, even small diseases that were overcome in the past are now just devastating many, many people. And I think also that the Belgian interference should be we should put an end to it, because you always see Belgian on the two sides of the story. They come along with advices, but they also are there to make impossible the capacity of Congolese to rule themselves. And I know what I'm talking about. I've been in exile in Belgium, and I know hardly how it is, a heavy burden to be a
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And to be accepted as such.
Thank you for time. I'm just going to pass the same question to Jean-Jacques, Monsieur Jean-Jacques Plumba, if you can go.
Voilà, lors d'une interview que j'avais accordée à un journal belge en 2017, j'avais dit que le Congo n'a pas besoin d'hommes, de leaders éclairés ou de Messie, parce que le Messie n'arrivera plus. Aujourd'hui, nous connaissons ceux qui rongent le Congo aujourd'hui. C'est un problème de la souveraineté nationale, c'est un problème de l'intangibilité de nos frontières, ce sont des problèmes économiques, ce sont des problèmes politiques. Et aujourd'hui, la priorité, c'est de travailler afin que ce peuple qui doit demain construire tout ce que nous voulons soit un peuple consciencieux à travers un nouveau leadership qui doit arriver. Et j'appelle de tout mon vœu que ce leadership soit comme le leadership qu'il y a eu en 1960 avant l'obtention de l'indépendance de notre pays. Il faudrait qu'on ait des leaders désintéressés, il faudrait qu'on ait des gens désintéressés qui viennent en politique non pour se servir, mais réellement pour servir le peuple. Et de l'autre côté, il faut travailler pour que ce peuple ne puisse plus applaudir des gens et avoir des gens comme modèle ou des personnes humaines comme modèle, parce que ce système a échoué pendant 60 ans. Aujourd'hui, le peuple doit avoir des priorités. C'est quoi la priorité du peuple? C'est de manger, c'est d'être en sécurité, c'est de prospérer, c'est de travailler et c'est de pouvoir avoir un avenir qui soit beau pour les enfants afin que demain, l'immigration ne soit pas un défi qui ronge notre peuple, afin que demain, le peuple ne puisse plus mourir de faim alors que nous avons des terres qui sont arables et où nous pouvons cultiver et avoir tout ce que nous voulons dans notre pays. C'est ça le défi des 60 prochaines années. Et c'est à chaque Congolais, où qu'il soit, de la diaspora, surtout de la diaspora, parce que nous sommes plus éclairés peut-être que ceux qui sont au Congo, et aussi du leadership éclairé au Congo. Quand je parle de ce leadership, je ne vois forcément pas la classe politique, mais toutes les personnes qui ont eu à aller un peu plus loin dans les études et qui ont cette conscience de pouvoir aider le peuple à chaque niveau que ces gens se trouvent pour pouvoir développer le Congo et avoir un pays grand. Aujourd'hui, vous le savez bien, notre économie n'est pas tenue par les Congolais, mais il faut travailler pour que demain, cette économie soit tenue par les fils du pays, à l'instar du Nigeria et d'autres pays comme le Maroc qui ont bien progressé.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. The next question we have here, because I know we're running out of time here. Kambale, I know you didn't answer a question, so there's a question from a Owen Smith in the panel, in the question in the chat, and he's saying Congo is well known for its natural resource potential, but there are other opportunities. The Virunga National Park contains the second largest rainforest in the world outside the Amazon. but the country needs stability for that to work. Are the panelists confident that stability can be obtained so that economic prosperity can be achieved? Kambale, that's for you.
I actually answered that question in writing.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I missed that actually. Yeah. Perfect. So, Mr. Owen Smith, your question is should be there in writing. And so I'm just looking for another question. There's another question here. What are the concrete next steps that you can recommend to the youth? What concrete next step can you recommend to the youth seeking to reclaim their country? I'm going to ask one person to answer that question. Whoever wants to take that. I think the youth guy is smiling there. Kambale, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I love that question. Thank you, James, for the question. Before even thinking about what we can do, we have to believe that it's possible, right? Because we're coming sometimes from the perspective of knowing how big the challenge is. So we want to know the 1, 2, 3, which is easy to do. Like I said, do this, do this, do this. But you must believe, like I told my math professor that he was a liar when he told me that the square root of x is I, the square root of negative x is I square root of x. How do you have a square root of a negative number? And when I asked my teacher that, he told me we made it up. I said, how? I is in an imaginary number. So the square root of negative x, you take the minus and you put it outside the square root and you put I in the front. For the math nerds, you understand what I'm saying. But I told my teacher he's a liar. But for solving that problem, right, an impossible problem, we are able to treat some diseases with a formula of I square root of x. The Congo is a particular problem, right? It's a very unique problem. Many countries around the world have not faced what Congolese have faced for the past 400 years. That the solutions of the conflict in DRC are going to be dialectics. It has to be in praxis, and we have to be engaged. For young Congolese who want to know, what do you do now to change the country? I want you to be engaged. One, concretely, if you can, on the ground with movement, we must build a unity of the masses. And when I'm talking about the unity of the mass, I'm not even worrying about the elite. I'm talking about the mothers who are in the market, selling pondu, selling bread. Do we know why a Congolese woman is selling bread from Pain Victoire when the company, right, that sells Pain Victoire is under quote unquote sanctions for embezzling funds in the DRC to support some terrorist group? Why can't we have a local boulangerie where Congolese women can do that? So we need to address the issues of the masses by building the unity. It sounds abstract, but it can only happen through practice of you engaging on a daily basis with organizations who are working on that. After building the organization at the unity of the masses, that mass will demand the end of the occupation. That mass will demand the leaders that they want. So if we don't get to that unity, that's the time it's going to take us to actually be able to organize. But if we do it with you, Jim, I'm looking forward to your call after this call. Join us. Join us to liberate.
Thank you, Kambale. I have, I think, another question here, another for one person, and we're running out of time, so it's going to be 1 minute max. It's from teacher Hansa, and I'm just going to paraphrase it. It says, my question to you is after 60 years, is Congo really independent in fact, or is it still under international supervision? If that's the case, what do you think will be the strategies to make it economically and politically independent?
Well, first, may I?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, first, I think we have to believe in our own sovereignty and work for that and make effort for that. I, for instance, as a president of diaspora, I have been claiming it everywhere. I visited some university in the United States to bring the message, but I'm still very astonished to see that diaspora itself is not convinced that we are able to do it. You see, so far, diaspora didn't have the right to vote, but see how diaspora, in a confusion, was just ready to follow some leaders who came from Congo. who accepted the occupation. So, I mean, it's still a challenge today to direct the Congolese, but I think it is possible. We have to keep faith. And on my part, I have written my book. And my book is, you know, for an education purpose for this diaspora, because I thought and I realized that our youth didn't know about history, and even older ones didn't know about history. So I think that Kasavubu, as first president, his all life is just a testimony of what we faced during colonialism, how we overcame colonialism, and how we had goals to bring our country forward for development. But of course, it was not easy, as I mentioned previously, but I mean, it's also a testimony of how ourselves, we can be our own enemies, whereas someone is ready to serve you. So I think we have many lessons to draw from this book, and this is my coming challenges. So I will organize meetings with youth throughout diaspora. That's why I was always asking for financial support. But diaspora must understand that we cannot win this battle if we don't help ourselves, if we don't bring financial support. And I've talked so much. I have spoke so many times, but I hope this time I can.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so sorry to have to cut you guys off like that. We're getting almost at the end, and I know there's another question or two there, but I'm like, you know what? We're getting at the end right now. I'm sorry if for those that I'm missing your questions. I just wanted to give the chance to the panelists to in 1 minute to give us a little bit of what you're working on right now. What's going on with you? What do you have in the future for us? If you're working on a book, if you're working on whatever project you're working on that you would like us to know about. I'll start with you, Jean-Jacques, s'il vous plaît.
Voilà, le plus grand projet aujourd'hui avec lequel nous sommes en train de travailler avec les amis, c'est dans le cadre du réseau panafricain de lutte contre la corruption que nous avons mis en place. Là, nous sommes en train de lancer une première édition d'une grande conférence qui va se tenir probablement en ligne compte tenu du contexte du Covid, où nous allons réunir plusieurs représentants africains, des anciens chefs d'État, des ONG, des pays, pour réfléchir sur des questions de gouvernance pour les prochaines années, entre autres les problèmes de la dette, les problèmes de la transparence, les problèmes de l'agriculture en Afrique en général et des problèmes de gouvernance et de la réelle indépendance du continent africain pour pouvoir ensemble, compte tenu du fait que nous avons les mêmes problèmes, réfléchir sur les solutions pour aider nos pays respectifs à trouver des solutions durables sur ce que le continent va devoir vivre dans les prochaines années. C'est le projet qui nous préoccupe et qui va nous préoccuper pour les prochains mois sur ce que nous sommes en train de faire.
Merci, merci. Kambale, we'll go next to you.
Very unfair. 1 minute. Let me use it wisely. First, August 2nd, 1998, the second war invasion started, which is tomorrow. CAYP organizes every year a commemoration of the Congolese genocide. I'm encouraging people to participate in it. It's a collective exercise for us to remember what has happened to us, to lift up the names of those who have left. Secondly, I always encourage people to go to friendsofthecongo.org and participate in Congo Week. Every third week of October, Congo Week happens. I still remember Nancy getting what's his name? The guy from Haiti. I always forget his name. The singer you got to speak at a concert, where you gave them the flyer of Congo. 45,000 people die every month, and he stopped the concert and he actually spoke about the Congo. I always forget the name of the artist, but the Haitian artist had a concert, and young Congolese took it upon themselves in the concert to make it a mission for the world to know about the Congo. So third week of October, we encourage people wherever you are.
Sorry, you mean Wycliffe Jean?
Yes.
You didn't know, you forgot Wycliffe?
I forgot his name. I said the Haitian artist. That video moved me a lot, right? People go to Wyclef Jean's concerts to listen to music, and on the front row of the concert, there were two young Congolese with a paper just waving with a note, and he was singing on stage. So these young Congolese approached them on the stage, pulled the paper, and he stopped the concert. And they wrote on that piece of paper, 45,000 people die every month in the Congo. And he stopped the concert. He said, I was singing, and I saw these young Congolese waving, these young people waving the paper, and I took the paper. He says that, please remember the people of the Congo. That was the contribution to the story of the Congo. I mean, I'm mentioning that because people we may not even know this ever happened. How many people were at the concert? How many people were touched, right? That every Congolese, wherever they have to become ambassadors for the Congo to tell the Congolese stories, because it's not done. And we have that historical mission that Patrice Lumumba told us. History, they have it say. It's not gonna be the history written in Paris, Brussels, Washington, or the colonial spaces. It will be history written by Congolese, by Africans that will tell the history, prosperity. And we need to write that history. And
Amen.
Will be that.
Thank you so much for that, Kambale. I think that's the best quote of the day right there. Mama Kasavubu, est-ce que vous pouvez parler de... can you please talk to us about your project, please?
Well, I'm on the right track, huh? So I've written a book, and I think the purpose is just what our friend has just said. So I'm going to organize, I repeat it again because it's a very important, organize sessions of education and bring some more history for our youth and even for elders, because this is, the key question for the future. If we know our history and if we write our history, it's for the purpose of our people. So when we make the effort to get some curiosity to know how things happened in the past, we can now overcome how we can prevent some failures for the future. And this is why I'm calling again and again our compatriots throughout the diaspora to bring us financial support, because we are not an institution in the country. We are trying to organize ourselves outside the country, not within the institution of the countries where we are in exile, but in parallel of these institutions, because we have our own specificity. And I hope that it will be done. And anyway, I'm going to do all my best to make it happen. So we have to keep faith, and sure, we can overcome. And I'm very, very certain that good times are still ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And wow, this is, I think we've reached the end of this event. I'm very glad that it went well. I'm very glad that we had different perspectives. We kept it very in the box, even though it could have been good to sometimes go out of the box, but it was very good to have everyone here and share their experiences. And before we leave, actually, I'll have Barbara, who's going to do a conclusion for us. And after that, we had Zunait, who the Turkish man who was with us there. He wrote a song called Dear Congo. And he's our Turkish Congolese who wrote a beautiful song about the Congo, and we'd love to share that with you as we're leaving. So Barbara, I'll let you do the conclusion for us, please.
Thank you, Patrick. Firstly, thank you so much to everyone, especially the panelists who took their time out of their busy schedule. We all heard what they're up to now and what they have been up to, so we know that they're very busy. So thank you so much for giving us this insight. I myself is very much looking forward to this, and as you know, we started this journey many years ago with Mama Justine and Kambale. So it's amazing to have you back, and it just shows that you're not giving up. You're still fighting the good fight, which is so important. In terms of takeaways from this, I think we had so many questions that we were unfortunately not able to answer on this live, but But I think between us, we've decided that we're coming back. This is not the last one. We have to continue because people want to help, people want to do things. And I think key takeaways from this is, I have 3 down. So I think education was mentioned so many times. Education is the key for us. We have to understand our history, and not only Congolese people, but it's the history of Congo is so important for Africa and for the world. So understanding our history is so important, and building on our history in order to find solution and learn from the mistakes that has been taking place in the past. So important that we all unite, and like I said before, we are. It's not only about Congo, but we need to stand together as Africa in order for change to happen in the Congo. The second one is about the diaspora. Most of us are abroad. Most of us are abroad from the Congo now, and it's so important that the diaspora stand together and support the people who are mobilizing, the people who are around in the diaspora and also on the ground, because they do need support in order to get organized. And this can be in terms of financing, in terms of skills. It is so important. Unless there is financial support and support within the skill set as well, it is hard to see true change in the Congo. And also one last point is power needs to be held by the people. It is so important that the people are the ones with the power. We do not need strong institutions like Barack Obama once said. It is, we need people, we need the people. So, sorry, we don't need strong people, we need strong institutions. It is so important. I think also, like I said, we will continue this. It is an important topic to have. We need to continue looking at ways to find solutions, how we can create solutions together and how we can unite. There were so many questions in regards to the youth. And I think all of the 3, Mama Justine, Kambale and Jean-Jacques are on Facebook, are on social media. So please do follow them. Please do follow their interviews and read into what they said that they're working on now, because we really need them and they need our support. My last takeaway was that Kambale forgot Wycliffe Jean's name. But yes, it's so important that we stand together. And I just want to highlight what Kambale mentioned as well, that a person like Wycliffe Jean was able to send the message of Congo to so many people at that concert. And it's important that we continue to spread the message. You never know who you run into. So keep talking about Congo, and please keep asking us questions. We are H2O Congo on Facebook and on Instagram as well. And I'm going to leave you guys with a beautiful song written by Kunate Yatskinner, who is also part of H2O Congo. And he wrote this song, it was inspired by Congo. So it's called Dear Congo. Thank you guys again for joining.
Thank you, everybody.
This song is called Dear Congo. Especially going through these hard times, I decided to play this song for you guys. I wrote this one about close to 6 years ago. My inspiration was a letter that was written by a little Congolese girl who lost her family. And this was a letter that she wrote to a UN peacekeeper. And it really broke my heart. Unfortunately, it's a sad song, but I think it's necessary to make everyone aware of what's going on in the world. Thank you so much for listening.
Well done. Yep, that was Nate with a song called Dear Congo. And once again, just before we say goodbye here, I just want to say thank you once again to all the panelists. Thank you to all the attendees. There's some questions that we were not able to answer. We'll try to individually send you those questions. I think an hour and a half was probably not smart on our part. um, we'll definitely try and do this again another time, maybe individually invite Kambale by himself, or invite Jean-Jacques by himself, or invite Mama Kasavubu by herself, because clearly we have a lot to say. So we just feel like, I mean, they have a lot to say. We want to hear everything they have to say, and I don't want to cut everybody. So thank you so much for that, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do this for us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I also just wanted to add, like Kambale said really clearly, maybe we can all think about that. What is the painting that we want to draw to tell a different story about the Congo? I thought that was very strong. So if we can just leave today with that thought and resume again and continue the discussion. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.